Hello, everyone. Joe DiChiara, CPA and lifelong entrepreneur, coming to you with episode number 7 of How to Win Big at Business. And today, in this episode, I am going to be covering something that affects everyone, every entrepreneur that's ever started a business. And if you can't solve this issue, you might as well close your business and go and get a job. And what I'm talking about is overwhelm. Okay. If you're watching the YouTube channel, you could see my two finger quotes because overwhelm is inevitable and it's not inevitable. And what I mean by that is as soon as you start a business, you will become overwhelmed if you're not ready. And very few people are ready. Only seasoned entrepreneurs will be ready because they've already gone through this. They've already done that. They know what to expect. Not only do they know what to expect, but they welcome the obstacles, the challenges. Because whether or not you like it, it doesn't matter. The universe doesn't care if it's going to bother you, if it's going to hurt you, if it's going to knock you off track. It's up to you as the leader of your company to deal with the overwhelm. And I'm gonna give you a snippet of one of the lessons that I've learned. There's a book out there called The Road Less Traveled. And it was written by a guy, if I remember his name correctly, it was Dr. M. I got it wrong. I actually forgot his name. And that's funny because I'm actually taking a memory course right now. But just look it up, The Road Less Traveled. It's a New York Times bestseller, great book. And in the introduction, if you just read the introduction, you're going to get a piece of knowledge that is invaluable. And I'm going to paraphrase it because what he says is this: life is tough. Once you accept the fact that life is tough, life isn't as tough anymore. In other words, God never promised us puppy dogs and rainbow. Life is a struggle. And then when you decide to start a business, it's like you throw gas on a fire. And that's why when I talk to people, if they give me a chance to mentor them or coach them and they're just starting out, my advice is going to be this. Number one, create a personal budget. Not in your head, not something that, oh, I know I spend about 6,000 a month. That's what it costs me to live. No, you got to get this down to a science. And there's a scientific fact behind this. And I'll tell you what it is basically. And not only that, what I suggest is not only do a budget like on a Google or Excel spreadsheet, because that's ultimately where it's going to go. Start the budget with a pen or pencil and paper and start writing down all of the expenses that you know that you have, like rent or mortgage, car payment, insurance, all the obvious thing. And the next step, what you're going to do is you're going to go through your last 6 months worth of bank statements and reality is going to step in. But that's not the real reality. The next step is take out all of your last 6 months, all of them. I don't care if you have 15 credit cards. Take out all of them and start noting the expenses that you've incurred that aren't on that initial list. Meals, entertainment, travel, holidays, birthdays, all the stuff that we never even think about that cost us money. Now, once you have that number, a solid number, I want you to add 15% to the number for unknown, okay? Emergencies, whatever, because they always come up. The car breaks down, something now, if you have children, what you're going to need to do is create a big black hole in your budget, okay? Because let's face it, children, you're, especially if you're a new parent, you're going to start having expenses that you never even dreamed that you might have. For instance, my first son needed braces, and I'm like, oh my God, how much is that? I didn't budget for braces. Why can't he just, grow up with crooked teeth? A lot of people do that. So anyway, the point is you got to come up with a real bottom line number. And that's the number that your business needs to produce after taxes. Okay, you got a budget in there for taxes. Most people won't. If you have a job, you're gonna put in, okay, this is what I take home every month. Mistake, mistake. Because whatever that you're taking home has no real, how do I say this? It's a moving target. Your taxes are a moving target. So I've only had maybe one instance where a client actually was getting $1 refund, $1, okay, which meant pretty much hit the nail on the head. The problem is the withholding charts are all wrong, but I don't want to get off track here, which is easy for me to do. The bottom line is you got to come up with a realistic number, and that's your target. And if you can't hit that number consistently with your business, you're probably better off sticking with your job. And I've had to tell plenty of people that were in business for years, I'm like, you know what? It's time for you to go back to work. You don't have to call it quits. Just go get a job, get yourself on your feet, and put some money away. Have, at least 6 months worth of savings. Because when you get into business, you are going to get overwhelmed. You are going to get hit with stuff that you never expect. So that's step one. Step two, and what we're talking about here is avoiding overwhelm. So the abundance of stuff that you're going to have to do is a given. It's a given. And it's sort of like, it's not if we're going to die, we're going to die. The question is when and how. Okay, how long do I have left on this earth? Same thing with a business. When you start a business, it's going to be overwhelming because you have 80 different things to do, and they all need to get done yesterday. On top of that, you got to make sure that you have clients, you got money coming in, you're paying your bills. It's overwhelming, especially most people start businesses by themselves. It's also lonely. So not only is it overwhelming, people that are around you that's never been in business, your spouse, your friends, your family, they're not going to understand. They're not going to get it. And it's not like you can confide in people that just don't get it. So the next thing you got to do is you got to create a realistic startup budget. What is it actually going to cost me to get into business? Now that's assuming that you're listening to this before you've started. If it's after you've started, you've already, gone beyond that roadblock. Okay. And you've probably most likely already got hit with the unknowns, the unexpected. Next thing, and I don't care where you are in your business, you need to have a big business budget. And a lot of businesses are seasonal. So you got to account for that seasonality. For instance, I'm an accountant. November and December are low months, no matter what. No matter what. People are preoccupied with the holidays. Even if they want to start a business, they're probably going to wait until after the first of the year. It's a psychological thing, and it's a time management thing. So if everybody ran their lives and their businesses the way that I do, which is highly structured, highly organized, it wouldn't be a problem. But the truth is that my business is seasonal. And I've accepted that a long, long time ago. So guess what? I make sure that I'm not going to get caught with no cash in November and December. January is okay. By the time February hits and we're doing tax returns, the cash flow starts. And unfortunately, in the accounting business, usually over 50% of the revenue is earned in 25% of the year. So that's what we call work compression. In the beginning, it's shocking. It's like, hey, how do I pay my monthly bills if I'm not making any money in November and December? Well, when you have a job, it's not a problem. You know what your paycheck's going to be. When you have a business, it's a whole different story. So that's the financial aspect of it. New business owners, this is what I tell them. Make sure you have 6 months worth of personal money. In other words, enough for 6 months to cover your personal expense. 12 months if possible. Also, make sure you have at least 6 months worth of business cost in the bank. Now, entrepreneurs are usually impatient, myself included. I would be like, listen, I'll figure that out later, which is our mentality, our normal mentality, because we're like bulls in a china shop and waiting until I have enough money. Well, that's usually not going to happen. But that's the best advice that I could give people. The next thing is, how do I deal with the stuff that I never even knew I was going to have to deal with? Like now I have an accountant and he's telling me I got to register for sales tax. I got to set up payroll. This is all going to cost me more money. What do I do? Well, if you have a good accountant, what you're supposed to do is listen to them, because not listening to them is going to be painful. It's going to cost you down the road. Now, what's going to happen inevitably, and it happens to all of us, it's happened to me plenty of times, because here's the other. If you can overcome the overwhelm obstacle initially, like if you figure out, okay, I got this, I'm not gonna react to situations. I'm going to expect them. And it's not if something's going to happen, it's when something's going to happen. And the only thing that I could control is how I deal with it emotionally, physically, and what are my solutions going to be? Because in the end, entrepreneurs are solution people. We solve problems. Give me a problem. Not only will I solve it, but I'll probably figure out a way to make money with it. And that's what it is. You look at inventors, people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. You tell Elon Musk, yeah, you can't fly to Mars. You can't. And guess what? He's going to wind up flying to Mars. So entrepreneurs are impatient, persistent, they have tenacity, and those are qualities that get us into trouble. But let's say you're one of the lucky ones and you get to overcome the initial shock of being in business. And you're like, oh, I got through. I'm a survivor. Oh, I hope that never happens again. But now I got all my expenses under control. I have a good set of clients. Money's coming in. I'm paying my credit cards. And everything's great. It's rainbows and puppy dogs. Well, guess what? It's only a matter of time before the next storm arrives. And again, it's not if it happens, it's when it happens. So depending on how old you are, I'm going to go back to 2008. The US economy was rolling. People were buying houses. They were getting equity loans. They were buying yachts and making deals. Investment bankers were doing mergers and everything was good. Land of milk and honey. Anybody that wanted to could make money, especially in real estate. You had people flipping houses. And then guess what happened? It was all built on a house of, it was all built on what they call the subprime mortgage industry, where people making $50,000 a year were buying $800,000 houses thinking that, oh, it's going to go up in value and I'll just take out another equity loan or I'll flip it. And for a time that worked. For a time that, but in the end, House of Cards eventually come crashing down. And that's what happened. It was out of anyone's control. The smart people were prepared. They were prepared. But most people weren't prepared. And that situation had worldwide repercussions. So things are going to be out of your control. Some things will be in your control. Sometimes you'll make bad decisions. We all. So how do you deal with that overwhelm? What's going to happen inevitably is you're going to start questioning yourself. You're going to say, what did I do? How did I get into this mess? Did I make the right decision? Maybe I should have just stayed at my job. Maybe I should just close the business and go back. That's normal. We all think that. I've had plenty of times where I said, you know what? I wish I could just have a job and get a paycheck every week. And then that lasts for about 90 seconds. And then I'm like, what am I crazy? I'm going to be miserable. I can't work for somebody. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. Every time I worked for somebody, it just didn't work out. And it wasn't them, it was me. It was because my entrepreneur soul could never be comfortable being in a boxed in position, especially as an account, especially as an account. So how get yourself to the next level? Well, number one, your attitude. You have to have a positive mindset. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. My one of my former coaches said, I asked him, I said, Larry, how do you stay motivated? And what he told me was discipline eats motivation for, and I just looked at one of my first podcasts, and I have to rename it because I said I worded it wrong. And anyway, discipline eats motivation for dinner or for lunch, whatever you. The bottom line, you can't be motivated all of the time. It's just not feasible. But if you have discipline, if you incorporate positive into your routine, that's one. So it takes me about an hour, hour and a half every morning to get. I do things that have nothing to do with my business, but everything to do with my business. Starting with my little massage gun, I massage my hands, my head, my back, the bottom of my feet. And what does that do? It creates blood circulation. Then I'm going to read from my spiritual books. I'll read from the Bible. Uh, and then I do a couple of things. During the day or early evening, I'll usually go to the gym. I'll stretch out. I'll do some treadmill stuff, and then I'll go and do a couple of laps in the pool. Nothing crazy. I'm not like a workout junkie, but just to get out there, get my blood flowing, get my mind clear, and I also take time for myself. I don't just work 24/7. Some people like Elon Musk and Gary Vee do, but they're built different than most people. Most people, especially most successful people, will tell you they go on vacation, they take weekends off, they make time for their family, they do stuff. They're not all, And here's the bottom line, folks. We all have the same amount of time. So when somebody tells me I don't have time, I laugh. I laugh. Well, you got the same 24 hours a day that I have. I have the same 24 hours a day that Elon Musk has. And Elon Musk is running like 6 major companies. Now, I'm not saying I'm Elon Musk, not even close. Nobody's close to. But did you ever wonder how the president of the United States can go on vacation? The most powerful man in the world is taking time out to golf, go on vacation, because that's the time that they're relaxing, they're clearing their mind. They're clearing their mind so that when that next obstacle appears, they're going to be in a position of solving that. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, join the club. Don't let it get you down. Take a deep, read some books, keep a positive attitude, incorporate positive habits into your routine, and I guarantee you it won't be as the situation might not change, but you're going to be better dealing with the situation, no matter what it is. And successful entrepreneurs, they recognize that whenever there's a problem, there's a solution. And a lot of times, looking, they're thankful that the issue came up because other things wind up happening from it. There's a chain of events. And I can't get into examples. The podcast would be way too long. But cause and effect, sometimes we do things that we didn't plan on doing, and then we're thankful for it later on. So that's my story. I'm sticking with it. God bless. And I will see you in the next episode of How to Win Big at Business.